Ever feel like the universe is kind of like holding out on you? Like there's this secret code to get what you want, but no one gave you the cheat sheet.
Right.
Well, buckle up because today we're diving deep into this whole idea of allowing your desires to manifest.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
We're taking cues from this awesome podcast you sent over about Abraham Hicks' teachings. And you know me, always down for a little mystical exploration, especially if it means manifesting some good stuff in my life.
Who isn't? Right.
Exactly. So instead of wrestling with the universe, it's more like we need to figure out how it operates. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about understanding the current, learning to ride the rapids instead of constantly trying to paddle upstream.
Okay, I like that visual. So instead of fighting against the flow, we're finding a way to move with it and maybe actually enjoy the ride a little bit more.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder, right?
Right. But this whole allowing thing, I'll be honest, it sounds a little too good to be true, don't you think? Like, how does that even work? Is it just wishful thinking?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. This podcast episode really zeroes in on something called resistance. And it's not just about, like, having negative thoughts.
Okay, so it's deeper than just thinking positive.
Exactly. It's the feelings behind those thoughts, that underlying energy that seems to be the real deal breaker. It's like, you can say you want that promotion, but if deep down you're feeling a knot of anxiety, like, what if I screw it up?
Oh, tell me about it. I know that feeling. It's like that inner voice that's all, yeah, right, dream on.
Yes, that inner skeptic. And the thing is, those feelings of doubt, fear, all that stuff, it sends out a conflicting message. So even if you're doing all the right things, saying all the right affirmations, that underlying energy of resistance can actually block you from getting what you want.
So it's not just about thinking it. You have to actually feel it, too. Man, manifestation just got a whole lot more complicated.
Right. It's like we've been given this whole hustle culture playbook where we're supposed to muscle our way through everything. But what if, instead of forcing, we could tap into something more aligned, something that feels more effortless?
Okay, so less go-getter, more go-with-the-flow kind of vibe. I mean, I can dig it. But how do we actually shift those feelings? How do we go from feeling doubtful to feeling deserving?
Well, that's where understanding the emotional landscape comes in. And what's cool is that this podcast episode actually gives us some pretty practical tools to work with. And what I find fascinating is that they're not about manipulating external factors. It's about cultivating a specific internal state.
Interesting. So we're not necessarily trying to make it happen, but rather we're trying to be open to it happening.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll admit that sounds a little out there even for me. But hey, I'm always up for expanding my awareness. What kind of tools are we talking about here?
Yeah. Well, one that Zen M, the host of this podcast, really emphasizes is meditation. And it's not necessarily about emptying your mind completely, but more about becoming aware of those thoughts, especially the ones that tend to spiral, and creating some space around them. It's like hitting the pause button on those automatic reactions.
Okay, so instead of getting swept away by those thoughts, you're learning to observe them without getting so attached to them.
You got it. And in that space of observation, it becomes a lot easier to choose a different perspective, a different feeling. It's like that split second between stimulus and response meditation helps you create more space there.
Interesting. It seems like this whole practice is about getting comfortable with that space, that pause. So less about forcing ourselves to feel happy all the time,
Yeah.
and more about just creating room for whatever we're feeling without letting it completely run the show.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we are not our thoughts. We are the observer of our thoughts. And from that place of observation, we have the power to choose how we respond.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. So we're not just trying to think positive thoughts. We're actually trying to shift our underlying vibration to one of trust and receptivity.
Exactly. It's about creating an internal environment where your desires can flourish.
So how does gratitude fit into all of this? Because I know that's another big theme in a lot of these manifestation practices.
Yeah, Zen M talks about that a lot, actually. It's not about ignoring the challenges, but actively looking for things to appreciate, even in the midst of those challenges.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in what's going wrong, especially when it feels like everything is a hot mess. But what I'm hearing is that gratitude is like a muscle, and the more we use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. And the cool thing is that gratitude has benefits beyond this whole realm of manifestation. Like, there are actual studies that show it can reduce stress, improve sleep.
Right, it's not just some woo-woo concept.
Exactly. It's good for your mental and physical well-being, which in turn can make you more receptive to those good things you're trying to manifest.
So it's like this positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
But how does gratitude specifically tie back to this idea of allowing?
Well, when you're feeling grateful, you're naturally shifting your energy from a state of lack to a state of abundance. You're acknowledging that even though you may not have everything you want right now, you still have enough. And that feeling of enoughness is huge. It sends a powerful signal to the universe that you're open to receiving even more.
It's like you're telling the universe, hey, I see you, I appreciate what I've got, and I'm ready for more.
Yes, it's about coming from a place of trust, even when things feel uncertain.
That makes sense. So we're cultivating this sense of trust. We're practicing gratitude. We're creating space for our emotions through meditation. But there's still this element of surrender, right? Of letting go of the need to control the outcome.
hmm
And that can be a tough one, especially when it comes to the things we really, really want. Like, how do we let go of that desire to micromanage every little detail?
Yeah, it's definitely a paradox. We're conditioned to go after what we want to make things happen. But allowing asks us to do the opposite, to loosen our grip, to trust that sometimes the path unfolds in ways we don't expect.
It's like when you're trying to remember something, and the harder you try, the further away it gets. But then you let it go, you focus on something else, and bam, it pops in your head like magic. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Exactly. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom. We can provide the right conditions, sunlight, water, nutrients. But ultimately, we have to trust the flower's natural timing. We can't force it to open on our schedule.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about when it comes to the bigger things in life, like a new job, a relationship, a major life change? Are we supposed to just allow those things to happen without taking any action?
That's a great question, and I think it highlights the importance of using discernment with any of these practices. Allowing doesn't mean being passive or ignoring the need for action. It's more about approaching the situation from a place of trust and openness rather than fear and resistance.
So it's not one or the other. It's finding that balance between action and allowing. Like, it's not about sitting back and waiting for opportunities to fall into our laps. It's about taking inspired action from a place of alignment, knowing that the universe has our back.
Yes. It's about recognizing that we are co-creators in our lives, not just victims of circumstance. We can take action, we can make choices, but we can also choose to approach those choices from a place of alignment rather than force.
I like that. So we're not just sitting back and letting life happen to us. It's more about finding that sweet spot between action and allowing, effort and surrender. But how do we actually do that? How do we know when to push forward and when to surrender?
Well, Zen M talks about the importance of intuition, that inner voice that often whispers to us when we're quiet enough to hear it. It's about cultivating that connection with ourselves, that inner knowing that often gets drowned out by the noise of everyday life.
So it's about learning to tune into that still small voice inside.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have that inner wisdom, that guidance system, but sometimes we're just not tuned into it. And that's where practices like meditation and gratitude come in. They help us to quiet the mind, to create that inner stillness, so we can actually hear what our intuition is trying to tell us.
So it's not just about feeling good for the sake of feeling good. It's about creating the optimal internal conditions for clarity, for intuition, for inspired action.
Exactly. And when we're operating from that space, when we're aligned with our own inner wisdom, that's when we're most likely to attract the people, opportunities, and experiences that are truly in alignment with our highest good. It's like we become a magnet for the things we desire, not by forcing, but by becoming a vibrational match for them.
Wow, I love that analogy because it really highlights the importance of our energetic state. When we're vibrating at a frequency of fear, doubt, scarcity, we're more likely to attract experiences that mirror those emotions.
Uh-huh.
But when we're vibrating at a frequency of love, gratitude, abundance,
That's when the magic happens.
right, that's when we're in flow. Okay, I have to admit, this is starting to make a lot of sense to me, but I feel like there's still so much to unpack here. Like, if allowing is all about being open to receiving in unexpected ways, how does that actually show up in our lives? What does it look like to truly receive with open arms?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think it deserves its own deep dive because, honestly, sometimes the universe works in mysterious and often hilarious ways.
So we're back, and I'm ready to dig into this whole receiving with open arms thing.
Mm.
Because honestly, sometimes I feel like the universe is just like Throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks.
Right, like here's a bunch of random stuff, hope you ordered the right thing.
Exactly. So how do we know when it's actually our desires manifesting, especially if they're showing up in ways we don't expect?
That's where trust comes in. It's about letting go of those preconceived notions we have about how things should be and just being open to the possibility that the universe might have something even better in store. Like maybe you had your heart set on that one job, but then something even better comes along that you never would have even considered.
Okay, but our brains love to hang on to those expectations, don't they? It's like, universe, I placed my order, now deliver it exactly as specified, please and thank you.
I know, right? We can be such control freaks sometimes, but that kind of rigidity, that need to micromanage everything, it can actually block us from receiving those unexpected gifts.
So are we talking about adopting this expect the unexpected kind of mindset?
Yes. It's about being open to the possibility that your desires might manifest in a form you hadn't even considered.
Okay, I can get behind that. But what about when those curveballs come our way? And I'm not just talking about things showing up differently than expected. I'm talking about things going completely sideways. Like, how do we reconcile this whole allowing thing with those moments of disappointment or even heartbreak? How do we make sense of that?
That's the real test, isn't it? When things fall apart, it's easy to feel like the universe is against us. But what if those challenges, those detours, are actually opportunities for us to course correct? What if they're actually happening for us, not to us?
Okay, so instead of seeing those moments as setbacks, we can choose to see them as opportunities for growth, for learning, for getting back on track.
Exactly. It's like that saying, when one door closes, another one opens. But sometimes we're so busy banging on that closed door that we miss the open one right in front of us. Allowing means trusting that even in the midst of those challenges, the universe is still conspiring in our favor, even if we can't see the bigger picture just yet.
All right, it's like we're playing Cosmic Connect the Dots, but we only have like 3 of the dots, so we have no idea what the picture's actually going to be.
Exactly. But we have to trust that all the dots are going to connect eventually, even if it takes a while. And sometimes the most beautiful pictures come from the most unexpected combinations of dots.
That takes a certain level of faith, doesn't it? Faith that even when things feel chaotic, there's an underlying order, a benevolence at play.
It does. And that's where those practices we talked about earlier come in: meditation, gratitude, cultivating a sense of trust in the universe. Those practices help us to strengthen that faith muscle so that when those inevitable challenges arise, we're better equipped to navigate them.
Yeah, it's like we're building our spiritual immune system, so to speak.
Exactly, because life is going to throw us curveballs. That's just part of the game. But by cultivating this mindset of allowing, of trust, of surrender, we're essentially saying, okay, universe, bring it on. I'm ready.
And that is a powerful place to be. So we're back, and I'm ready to unpack this whole receiving with open arms thing. It's kind of hard to do when you don't know what you're looking for, you know?
It's true. It's easy to get fixated on a specific outcome, a specific way we think things should look.
And then, what, we miss the signs. We're so busy looking for that promotion that we totally miss the amazing opportunity that comes knocking from a different direction.
Exactly. It's like that saying, we can't see the forest for the trees. We're so focused on the details that we miss the bigger picture.
So how do we widen our lens, so to speak? How do we become more receptive to those unexpected gifts, those plot twists that the universe seems to love so much?
It goes back to that trust factor we were talking about earlier. It's about letting go of the need to control every little detail and being open to the possibility that, hey, maybe the universe has an even better plan.
Ooh, there's that word again, trust. It seems to be a recurring theme here.
And for good reason. Trust is the foundation for all of this. Because when we trust that we're being guided, supported, and loved, even when things get messy, well, it changes everything.
It's like we're letting go of the reins a little bit, allowing ourselves to be guided instead of always trying to steer the ship.
Yeah.
But how do we do that when it comes to the really big stuff, you know? Like when it feels like our whole world is falling apart, how can we possibly allow that kind of pain and uncertainty?
That's where those practices we talked about, meditation, gratitude, really come in handy. They're not just some feel-good practices. They're actually tools that help us to shift our perspective, to connect with a deeper wisdom within ourselves.
So it's like we're building our resilience muscles so that when those inevitable challenges show up, we can actually bend without breaking.
Exactly. It's like anything else in life. The more we practice, the stronger we become. And the more we can approach those challenges from a place of trust rather than fear, the more gracefully we can navigate them.
This has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on this whole manifestation thing. It's not just about thinking positive thoughts, it's about cultivating a deep sense of trust and surrender. It's about recognizing that we're not just passive observers in our lives, we're active participants. But it's also about recognizing that we're not in complete control either.
Beautifully said. It's that dance between action and allowing, effort and surrender. And the more we can embrace that dance, the more we open ourselves up to infinite possibilities.
I love that. Well, on that note, to our amazing listeners, keep shining your light, keep trusting the journey, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.